Hey folks, this is Meredith from the Papery Craftery, and today we're going to be doing a pretty quick fall craft. We're going to be making leaves, but they're going to be kind of a multicolor situation. So I have some sort of yellowy oranges here. I have three different tones, kind of a dark to light situation. Quilled Creations orange, Quilled Creations golden, and then in the middle, a pale yellow, also Quilled Creations. And then I do also have a nice dark, it's called brown, a brown color from Craft Harbor paper. You can use whatever quilling tool you like. I have my needle tool. You'll probably want to grab a work surface. So I have a cork board here, some parchment paper to cover that, pins, a little bit of Elmer's glue all, and then my Smoky the Forest Bear ruler. You're also going to need some scissors. I did not add that when I was filming that part, but you will want to grab some small scissors as well. So the first thing we're going to do is grab our darkest color, which in this case is this brown, and I'm going to make it a double thick strip. You've seen this many, many times if you've ever watched any of my videos. I'm just taking one strip. This one's about 24 inches long, and I'm folding it in half. The length doesn't matter too much because we're really only going to be needing about 4 inches of the final double strip per leaf, but this strip will cover a couple of leaves. So I have a thin line of glue going down 1/2 of the entire strip, and I want to make sure I don't leave any gaps because that's going to make little air bubbles and you don't want that on this double thick strip. There we go. Get it all the way down to the end, and then it's a little tricky to do on camera, but get it folded over again. There's my fold for the beginning, and then I'm just going to zip it through my fingers a couple different times in a few different directions, and that's just going to make sure that everything's nice and even and there's no gaps and the glue gets all spread out. You're going to set that aside to dry, and we're going to move on to the rest of our leaf. For the leaves that I'm making, like I said earlier, I'm using 3 different colors, a darker color to a light color. You're kind of getting the impression that the leaves are in the process of changing colors. So I'm going to be making different size strips of each of these 3 colors. So I have my lightest color, this pale yellow, and that's going to be the smallest strips. I'm going to need 2 6-inch strips. By the way, these papers that I'm using are 1/8 inch wide. 3 millimeters will work fine. You can go bigger. You can try a little bit smaller. It should work fine. The double thick situation gets a little tricky when you're using the smaller, thinner paper, thinner width paper that is, but it will work. You could also use a cardstock if you wanted to for that double thick part, because that is going to be the stem of these leaves. The middle color here is that golden, and that's going to be 2 strips of 7 inches. And then for our darkest color, that's going to be the longest, and it's just 2 strips of 8 inches. So not a huge difference in these strips, just a little variation in the size. And you don't have to be super exact either. You can eyeball this. I will let you know one other thing. These leaves are going to be about 1 inch. They're pretty small. You can use the same idea with longer strips. Or I can show you later on how you can use more strips to make different size leaves. But this is what we're working with now. I have my needle tool here and I have my glue. And we're just doing a simple coil from one end to the other on all of the strips. They're all going to start off the same way. Whether you'd like to use the needle tool like I do, or you'd rather use the slotted tool, even an automatic quilling tool, all of those will work just fine for this project. So be sure to use whatever you're comfortable with. Roll it start to finish, take it off your tool, let it open up a bit naturally, and then you just need to glue the end down to keep that secure. And always with quilling, you don't want to use any more glue than you absolutely have to. The finest amount of glue is perfect. You can also use clear glue for this, especially if you're going to be making darker color leaves. You might want to use a clear glue because even the Elmer's glue or another white glue that says it dries clear can sometimes leave little glue bits behind. So I like to use the clear glue when I'm using darker colors. So now you can see I have done the same process of the rolling and gluing the coils to all 6 pieces. And I have my stem piece here, that dark brown, that is now dry and ready to go. I'm going to start shaping with my palest color, and I'm just making a half circle with this color. So that is just a matter of pinching one side, and I like to try to aim the pinch where my paper ended to hide that seam. Then pinching the other side, but keeping it flat by pressing up with my thumbs from the bottom. I'm not arching it around my thumbs. I don't want a curve. I just want it nice and flat on the bottom there. And now I'm going to apply a thin line of glue, wiping away any extra, to one of those yellow half circles, and I'm going to line it up right on the edge of my dark brown double strip. So this stem is not only the stem, but it's also kind of acting as the veins of the leaves. So now a little bit of glue on the other side, and line up that other half circle here. And you can cut the majority of that double thick strip if it's really long, kind of unwieldy. Like I said, you only need a few inches per each leaf. I did not do that as of yet, but I will get to that later on. If you'd like to, at this point, you can pin this to your work board, and that way you'll make sure that everything stays together nicely as it glues. You could hold it and just keep it pinched if you'd like to, but we're going to move on. So I don't want to have to hold it for very long. Now we're going to move on to the next color, which is the golden. And we're going to, at this point, make a marquee, which is just pinching both sides right in the same level, and then bending it over 2 fingers at the same time to make sort of an S shape, so a curved marquee. So there's one pinch on one side, one pinch on the other side, and bend it right over your fingers. And that's going to be the second layer to our leaf. And what I like to do is from the opposite end of where I glued the first part of the leaf, snip off enough of the stem to cover each of those pieces that we just made. And like I mentioned before, this is also acting like the veins in the leaf. So it's going to separate all the little sections of the leaf. And now the trickiest part to this whole simple project is making sure that you're putting the vein on the right side. So I like to just double check, line up my pieces so that they fit snugly against the palest color and the stem, which I just showed there. And then I'm going to make sure that I glue my brown piece on that part. A few times when I was making these examples, I wasn't paying attention and had these all flipped around, and then I would go to put them on and they'd be the wrong side, or I'd have to flip them upside down because they weren't sitting right. So just a little tip from me to you, just get it lined up first so you can make sure that you're doing what you want to do. And then after the brown piece is glued on, if you have any extra coming off either end, you can just give those a little snip. Right there, there's a little tiny bit of extra brown, so we're going to just snip that off. That's where those scissors came in handy that I mentioned earlier I should have had in the beginning. And just another little snip, it's good enough. And it's just a matter of doing it to the same side. So now it's going to be the opposite direction, which sometimes messes my brain up. So again, I just want to get it lined up so that it's the same side. And now I have the brown vein on both pieces. So just a little bit of glue there. And then for some reason, these pieces are very tricky for me to hold on to. I didn't grab my tweezers for this. I don't know why. But if you need tweezers, go ahead and grab those. They're always helpful to get little slippery pieces on where you need them. And you're going to look for a shape, something like what I have here. It's okay if they're not pressed right up against the stem as of yet, because we're going to pin these and really pinch them. Oopsie. Yeah, I don't know what it is. There's something about this particular shape that was just giving me a lot of trouble. Okay, again, here we are. Okay, so like I said, it's okay if they don't meet exactly on the stem. You're going to use some more pins, or if you had a lot of patience, you could hold this and just keep squeezing it with your fingers. That would work fine too. But especially if you're making a whole bunch of these and you're kind of doing it in stages, you might not have time for that. So this is where we're going to really squeeze the bottom of those golden pieces together and keep the stem in the center. You could even cross the pins. Sometimes that helps to get everything where you want it. And then once that's all set, we're going to let that get nice and dry and secure, and we're going to move on to the last color. There we go. And we're going to make another shape here. We're going to pinch one side, flip it over, pinch the opposite side, and now we're making a half moon. So we're going to bend it either over your thumb or some fingers just to give a slight curve. It doesn't have to be a super arc. You don't need to bend it over a tool just to get a real huge shape. You just want a slight little arc on there. And I already cut off a couple little snips of the brown because we want another little vein to separate these two colors. This and the color I just made. Get that done there. And we're going to get rid of any extra again. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. And same thing to the other side. So a bit of a pinch, give it a turn, a bit of a pinch on the other side, and then just bending it for a little bit of an arc. Again, glue and putting on the stem. I think you probably figured it out at this point. It's a little bit repetitive, but I like that brown, that darker piece to separate the colors. That's not necessary. If you don't like that look, you don't have to do it. I think it gives sort of a graphic vibe to it. I did a video on these pink and black flowers a couple of months ago, and that kind of a similar idea. It just gives it a really, almost like an illustrator kind of quality, or watercolor, stained glass. There's a couple different things it reminds me of, but I just like that look of the contrast between the darker color and the separation of the oranges and yellows that we're doing here. So at this point you might realize, oh no, my arc doesn't look like it's going to fit exactly the right way. It's not exactly the right shape. That's okay. That's just sort of a starting off point to get this section where we want it. So a touch of glue here, and then it's just a matter of placing it. That's a little high. Placing it, there we go, a little bit further down from the last color, and then across to where it hits the stem. And at this point, you might need to mold it a bit with your fingers just to fill in any of the gaps where it's not meeting up exactly with that golden piece. But that is the shape that we're looking for. I have an example or two at the end of this video where I do another curved marquee for this last color. That's another option. If you like that look better, I'll show some of those later on. And now we're just going to do the other side. Same process, a bit of glue, and then lining it up just a little bit below the last color, and then you can see there's a big gap, but that's okay, because we're going to mold it with our fingers, just like that, and it's going to fill in any space, and it's going to give it the 3-color leaf look that we are going for. And then we're gonna, not twist it. We're going to let that set. If you have it in the shape you want, you feel more comfortable pinning it together as it dries, you can do that. You might need to add a dot more glue here and there, especially where that last piece is hitting the stem. You can do that as well. Those needle nose glue bottles always come in handy when you're trying to get glue in little spots. Just make sure you brush away any excess because you don't want that drying and standing out too much. Now, at this point, I have everything dry. I have snipped the majority of that stem off, so I just have a couple of inches here. And I want that stem to be a little bit sturdier. It was already double thick, but I want it to be a little bit stronger. So I'm just going to fold it where it is, right in half. And then the same idea as earlier, I'm just putting a bit of glue down one half and then just squeezing it tight. You could make a quadruple strip the whole way. I just find it's a little bit harder to kind of squeeze the sections of the leaf if you're using the same quadruple thick strip. That's a hard one. If you're using that same thickness for the veins, it gets a little bit trickier to mold your leaf the way you want it. So that's why I just waited till the end and made it that way. So there we have our finished 3-color leaf. And there's a whole bunch of different options you can do for this. You can do different colors. Here is with a little bit of green. And this one here, I added a secondary layer of the darkest yellow there, that golden color, to make a little bit bigger leaf. Like I said earlier, you can just keep adding layers. You can make bigger sections. All of that would be okay. And there's some reddish ones and some brownish ones. And the brownish ones there, they have the last section with another of that curved marquee shape. Here's another one. You can see a slightly different shape. It's a little bit more elongated. Then, there we go. This one's got a little bit of a stubbier end to it. The one with the curved marquee is a little bit more of a long look. But there we have it. You can use these with your autumn flowerscapes. I have some black-eyed Susans there and a couple of little fall blossoms. You can use them by themselves. It's a little bit of a scatter situation. I think that's really cute as well. But I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, as always, leave those in the comments and I'll answer them as soon as I can. I always leave links to all the tools and supplies I used in the description box. So take a look there if you're looking for anything I used today. You'll also find a link for my Buy Me a Coffee page where you can show me a little bit of extra support or even just take advantage of some of the freebies that I have there as well. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe so you can be around for my next video. And thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye-bye.